Uh, there we go. We're in Kufei in Yoreh Deah, which is like it's about flavor transfer, I guess, is the best way to what is the
Mhm.
title of this one? Din Isur Shunafal Heter, but I don't love that title. So, but
Right. But I think it's limit there. My first questions about this, as soon as I saw it go from Aleph to Bet, which very much got answered in the Beit Yosef at some point, is, what's the connection and what makes this not really like our other conversations of Bishul?
yeah.
Well, another way to put it, I think, would be like the boundaries of Bishul
Yeah, I
on
would
both
actually,
sides of like
yeah.
what's how long, minimalistic Bishul. I don't know.
I would call it of like what are the different parameters of flavor transfer, really? Like, in terms of, right, we have heat, we have, proximity to the fire. I don't mean proximity like how close it is to the fire, but like proximity to being the thing on the fire, kind of is like the way to put Kli Rishon ala Eish, Kli Rishon is not on the Eish, Kli Sheni, Tata Gavar, Ila Gavar, those kind of, and kavush or kibush, depending on how you think it's pronounced. I think kibush might be right, actually, but it's the uh, what's that called? When you make the noun form of the verb, there's a name for it. I'm blanking right now, which is the PL version. Although I always learned as kavush, but who knows? So, um,
When
yeah,
they make the title of the item, it sometimes it's not necessarily the most normal. It could be the adjective too.
yes,
It
also
could be dag kavush. So we say kavush, the inyan of things that are kavush.
yeah, which is, as we put it, but this is gonna be one of the axes. It's we could, I don't know, how do you translate it? I don't think pickled is quite right. It's like it really steeped in cold liquid is probably the right translation. And it's going to,
Steeping. Yeah.
yeah, depend what kind of liquid it is and also the length of time and so forth. So maybe actually what I wanted to do, I had two real things. One, the Prima Gadim gives an incredible intro to all of this. We're not going to do all of his answers, but I wanted to just read he kind of gives, what is it, like six axes on which to think about this. Um, it's in the Mishpatzot Zahav.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And on the very beginning, right? He's, in the Mishpachot Zahav, which is his commentary on the Taz. I'm not sure why he does it on the Taz and not on the Shach. But Taz is earlier, I think. Taz came first before the Shach. That's right. So maybe that's why. Although I think he wrote both of them. I don't know if he wrote one of them before the other. Um, so let's dive into this. Do you feel like I think that
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
I want to just mention because I didn't find a good time before. I did go back and listen to that Sephardim Chatter printing series you mentioned.
Yeah, the
I
four
really
part.
enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So
it's a very important, there's like we barely do this in our little initiative, but there's a contextualization of everything we're learning. Um, besides for just and I'm not a master of this at all, like some of the other students, but like, who was writing and when. But thinking about the way they organize the press and the page, and also just we take this sort of page style learning for granted, and it's almost not just for granted. We take it as an identity, as like what is halacha or Jewish learning or even Gemara learning? It is that page in a lot of ways because of what you're doing intertextually. But then to understand that before the 15th century, essentially, everyone was doing it differently is really helpful. So then when you talk about what, like we were talking about Rashi the other day, like Rashi's experience is so different than our experience. And then the people studying Rashi for how many years before the printing press?
he dies in 1104, 1105, I believe. So
Yeah, so you have a good chunk of time where people are like Rashi's really spreading manuscript wise, and people must be having a copy of that open next to a copy of another manuscript to root themselves. And then, I don't know, it was mind blowing. It was great.
yeah, I remember hearing someone once say, a Jewish text has commentaries around the main text, and for most Jewish history, that's not true. Like that is a function of printers, and not a function of like Jewish. so to speak. In fact, I think there were Christian texts that had the same thing once upon a time that may
Mm.
have fallen out of style in the Christian world. And we've kept it for whatever reason. Mikraot Gedolot, Nachi and Michelle were very, like Mikraot Gedolot is a creation of the printers. It's not
Yeah.
like there was a Mikraot and what they decided to include and what they didn't decide to include, and it's like as Nachi, but Radak, they put Radak on Nach, but not Radak on Torah for whatever reason. It's there were choices. Um,
Yeah. The only thing I would wonder is the intertextuality seems to be present in some other way in the Talmud, and that's a way of saying they just had it in their minds,
yeah.
we would imagine.
Hmm.
And then when you end up building these pages, it is a type of expression of what we imagine the Talmud itself to be, which is like layered. Even in the chunk of it, it's sort of layered, right? So,
Yeah. Yeah, the Rav has an incredible, I don't know where he writes this, incredible piece about, like learning Gemara, and then the Rambam walks in the room, and then Rashi walks in, and then the Tosafos, Rabbi Tom walks in, and it's like you really are learning with these people in many ways. They're your Chavruta, they're live on the page. And we do, this sugya talks to that sugya. We really do play that game. But it's some of it's a function of
me,
printing.
Joel. Sorry, quick note from my. Sorry, I'm becoming a fish macher. So 10 pounds of fish were just picked up from a fish distributor. Long
Mhm.
story. We make our own sushi.
Oh wow. I wasn't sure if this is a kashrut thing, like people like skins. Uh,
No, no, you can tell me what I need to be doing in terms of we're about to salt it is not,
there,
not for kosher reasons.
there's a Pitchei Tshuva. I'm trying to remember where it is in your idea. Hopefully, when we encounter it, I'll bring it up about how buying fish from non-Jewish fish sellers
Hmm.
and how to do. I mean, I'll just tell you my own. I can tell you what I do.
Mm. Give me a regular hot. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I hope no
first,
one watches this on YouTube.
I mean, it's well, first off, right? If it might be different for like salmon, which I'm a little bit more lenient about, but or any like red fish, so to speak. But I always ask for the skin on, and I try to find scales. Right? If I had an incident once where I couldn't, like sometimes they descale them, but usually even then there's scales that are left on that you can find enough. Just like either you take a knife and rub it through your fingers, and the scales will come off pretty easily.
Mm.
If it's a kosher fish. I did have ones where I couldn't find any scales. There you could ask an expert in the skins, but I don't know anybody who is that, so I gave it to my non-Jewish neighbors. Is what I did. But the other thing I do is if everywhere they've cut it, I just take a knife and run it over the places where it's been cut. In case there was like some mixture of some fattiness with some other like shrimp or lobster or something like that, and then I won't rinse it off
Hmm.
from there. That's the Pitrei Tshuva talks about that. And that I would say, this happened recently. I bought for Shabbos. I bought some like Trader Joe's had frozen salmon fillets, and I was wondering, did I really have to do that to run the knife over? Because they probably were processing thousands of pieces of salmon in that place, and there probably wasn't any flavor being transferred between salmon and something else. But
Well,
uh,
this is giving me insight into it because I'm buying it from the one the importer
yeah,
who then gives it to the restaurants. So on the one hand, there's like quite a bit of information I have access to. I wonder also, I mean, in everything you said, you didn't mention like Chazaka based on the marketing of their product. Like if they're telling me salmon, does it have no place in the halacha that there's a sort of a market expectation?
as far as I know, no. Part of it is
Interesting.
people have done studies on this
Hmm.
actually, and fish sellers lie a lot.
Mm.
And I don't know if that they're lying. I think sometimes they just make mistakes, right? They put a sign up that says this is, such and such fish. It's not always the case. I mean, probably the better fish markets are more honest about it, but because that's part of the reputation, like Lamara Nafshe, they don't want to ruin their reputation.
Yeah.
Same thing we saw of like, that maybe a kfela, arma, it's davka kfela because they have a reputation to uphold about their tasting ability. Um, but fish sellers can also they could make a lot of a killing off advertising a fish as a particular kind of fish because they cost
Hmm.
more, it's more rare. So
True.
I do not trust that. That's my personal take.
Well, another option is well, because I'm getting it from them, I could get it whole.
That's yes.
Like I'm getting it with the skin, but I don't know how to take the bones out.
Yes.
So you're
So
getting to this interesting, when you have a Jewish fishmacher, so they can get the whole fish, and then I'm looking at a fish.
yeah.
This does have the skin though, so
Yeah. So
you're
I mean,
giving me a lot to think about.
there's a fish
More.
market, and it's in Ann Arbor, a very nice one. And I will go there sometimes, and I ask them, I say, what do you have that still has the skin on that I can find scales? And they'll tell me, they'll show me what it is. And often, like I get was a Bronzino, from them, and they'll fillet it, which is not cheap, but it's Shabbos. And they'll fillet it for me there, and I'll watch them do it. They do it out in the open. I watch them rinse, they rinse everything off beforehand. So it's probably not actually a concern. They're rinsing off the knives and the cutting board. And I can see them, do all and they leave the skin on for me. They're very nice about it. They think I'm crazy, but they leave the skin on for me. But the fish is, I can tell you it's a kosher fish. I can take a look at it. It looks like a bronzino. The scales are still there. So
This is I just got 10 pounds. I could probably get a full salmon. A salmon could be around that, but there are some that are like twice that.
yeah.
All right. Anyway, we
Anyway,
should do a little bit of this topic too.
yeah, we should do this. All right, so this will just help us with some of the parameters here. So go for it. Isur
Sounds
is
good.
Dibor Matchil.
עין תז,
Hmm.
קודם בוער לבאר דבריו, sorry, קודם בואי לבאר דבריו, אך קור קצת בדיני כבוש. So before I go into his words, I'll just talk about כבוש in general.
Hmm.
כבישה זו המוזכרת בפוסקים, דמהי, אם בלך דווקא, ואימתי יהיה נקרא לך. So kvisha that's talked about in the poskim is specifically talking about wet,
Hmm.
um, and when it would be called lach.
Yeah. For instance, right, it's a question of we saw this actually previously with the case of shemen in Kuf Daled. If it's nikrash, if it becomes congealed, does it still transfer flavor over the time of kavush? If it's ice, something gets trapped in ice, like because trapped in water and then it gets frozen, does that have implications to kavush or not? When is actually considered a liquid in terms of this flavor transfer? All right, that's number one. Keep going.
כמה זמן ישהה בתוכו, ואם פנו הוא תוך הזמן, ואחר כך הניחו בתוכו והשלימו לזמן. So how much time it stays there, and if you turned it in
Pinu,
that time.
remove it. Remove it.
Oh, remove it. The fun notes, right, of course. If
Mhm.
you remove it in that time, but then put it back and sort of completed the time, ve'ematai ba'habli va'plita. And when would the extrusion and transfer of flavor happen?
Exactly.
I mean, he's not saying much because he's sort of just the parameters, right?
That's it. He's going to answer all of them. It usually is very long. We're not going to do the whole thing. I just want to
That's
see
wild.
the
Yeah.
flavors up here. So,
I בכלי שייך כבישה לאסור לגמרי, או
kede,
uh,
kede klipa.
כדי קליפה מהכלי. So if we're talking about Um, if in the Kli, well, depend meaning a flavor from the Kli,
Yeah, or a flavor either way, right? Yeah,
right? Going in or out.
yeah.
Would it be everything in the Kli or just the Kdei Klipa from the Kli?
Mhm.
So the part that's directly near the walls of the Kli. ואם יש חילוק בין חרס לעץ ומתכות, and doesn't matter what it's made out of. ד' כבוש בציר וחומץ ושאר דברים חריפים. So specifically the things that we would think of as more like pickling because of
Mhm.
their harifut. So that's uh does sear here mean just juices?
Sear means brine here.
Oh, brine, specifically brine, right? Okay. L'chometz v'shar dvarim charifim. Okay. Imahani l'klei l'kli kishiur she'artiach.
Old Dilma,
Oh, dilma b'kli oser kavu en oser kavush.
Ki'im.
Kivush.
Yeah.
Ki im. I gotta get used to some of these like often appearing
Yeah.
or shakable.
Me'it late.
Oh, made late, of course.
Hmm.
They clip I'm starting to get made late. Okay, so imahani lekli kishir shir tiach, odilma bekli en oser kibush, ki im me'et le'et. I don't understand what the first option is. When it boils,
Or is it
is
just
it
the,
better
in other words, if I put, chometz or tsir in a kli, right?
when it's boiling?
I know I was boiling. Does the amount of time it would take, to boil that would be
Oh,
the amount of time it takes for it to transfer flavor with something harif,
mm,
or does it take a full 24 hours? So
right. Okay. I don't even know if we saw the option that it would be as short as Kadesh Tiach.
we saw that with food. The question is whether or not that would apply to a kli.
With the regular hot liquids.
Oh no, no, no. We saw that with if I put I don't know, a cucumber in non-kosher sear, right? It's not 24 hours that the flavor transfer happens. It could be, let's say, 18 minutes or something like that.
Similar to the speed of it putting it in a boiling pot.
Exactly.
Because sear specifically, it's like it's there to transfer flavor.
Yes.
Or harif might be the word they use. Okay, right. We saw that some flavor would transfer, not necessarily the whole thing, right?
Hmm.
I think was what happened there. Okay. Oh, Dima Baklina is okay. Okay. Or it's just me'et le'et for all things. Kvisha zo amuzkeret, he
I think it's Dvar Torah.
Idvar Torah, ve'i
Im Tem Selamar.
im tetzei lemar Dvar Torah, betzir v'chometz kedei she'artiach, Idvar Torah.
Yeah,
Okay, so this is a little bit more in the weeds.
it
So
is.
this kvisha that we said is that doraita, and if it is, would the case that we just described of sir v'chometz, just that shorter amount of time, would that also be doraita?
Exactly.
Hmm.
He's
Okay.
got one more, I think. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Kavush kemevushal, I mamash kemevushal. So when we say that it's like mevushal, if it really is, oh, da kavana rak laflit ve'avliya, or is it just it's like mevushal in the way that flavor is transferred?
Hmm.
I don't see the nafkamina of that though.
It could be like this might be the split on Shabbos between like something that's not doesn't do bishul but does transfer flavor might still osir something.
Hmm. But what's the other option?
That the two go together, right? Unless it's actually doing bishul, right? So there's like we say in cliche eno mevashel. Does that mean cliche
Right,
actually
but
doesn't transfer flavor, or does that just mean that and same thing when we say it kebishul, like kavush kebishul, is it actually bishul, or is it which of course that in itself may not be a problem on Shabbos because whatchamacallit, you're not actually doing the bish, by the time 24 hours is elapsed, Shabbos is over, kind of thing. But
for our sugya,
mhm,
does it matter if it's called a bishul or not? Like we talked about this at the end there.
yeah,
Um, I mean, the other thing I think that you would think of is the Isser bishul when it comes to basar chalav.
exactly. That would be the other difference. Yeah, basar b'chalav, where the dioraita Yisur and basar b'chalav is bishul, right? And we know kavush, right? If you stick basar b'chalav for 24 hours, dioraita, no problem.
And that's what we mean by kimavushal, but not. Kabusha.
Exactly. Although that might be because it's a chiddush also, because that's a chidush of that one category.
Right. Right. But they used it as a proof, and that's why we even got into that.
Yeah, it's a proof from the absence, kind of like this is different. It's a exception proves the rule. That's actually what it's an exception proves the rule. It's a chidush.
Right, right. Because in any other case, it would be exactly like Bishul,
Exactly. Yeah.
but it isn't there. Okay, but the other thing that it might matter for is this idea of laflit lavlia not being Bishul. Could that also mean the flavor doesn't go as far? Like it
Yes.
could be a Gede Klipa as opposed to we just consider that whole thing. Okay,
Absolutely. Yeah.
that's what I thought. Okay. גם אימה שחוץ לכבישה אסור או מותר. Maybe that's what I just said. No?
No, this is the floating piece, the piece that's like partway in the liquid and partway out of the
Hmm.
liquid. Like, does the flavor transfer up into the whole piece, or is it only what's under
Well,
the?
that's sort of an expression what I was saying. Meaning in a visual case, you sort of say it does,
Yeah.
but in a pleita, maybe it's just, just what it's touching.
Hmm. So, all
Okay.
right, we're gonna
Uh,
stop. He's gonna give answers. It's a
yeah,
long. He says biktsara, but it's not
I
so much.
love that.
Yeah.
It's
Um,
shorter than something.
it's true. It's worth reading. He's got, I mean, so much good stuff here. But and he's got his own opinions about things, of course, too. Um,
Yeah. So should I keep going?
no, no, I think because I think we'd only get part of it, and I don't think it's worth it because I have a few other things I want to do.
Great.
But I think he does a really nice job here of laying out what are the parameters that we're worried about, like what axes are are interesting in Kabush, right? We've seen, right? Already time, right? How much time did he actually even do time in particular? Um,
Well, he just made the line between
yeah,
8 and Shir Shiartiach.
Yeah, oh, he says bet. He says, "Come as man yisheh b'tocho," right? How long will
Yeah.
it? How
Yeah.
long? Right? We had right. There's a debate already
Machloket, right.
in the Rishonim between 1 day and 3 days. He actually doesn't fully talk about liquids, right? We saw right. If you remember, Rashi seems to, at least in some places, think that only spicy liquids do any sort of kavush, and maybe
Right.
Seer does faster, and maybe Chometz is 24 hours in some versions, and other versions are no. Maybe other liquid, non-spicy liquids, and maybe Chometz is one of them, are 24 hours, and Seer is much faster as Kadesh Yartiach. Um, but so there's many different axes, and of course we saw with the Mordechai and the Ravia think that it's 3 days, and the Rosh seems to think I think it's 1 day, May late. So we have all sorts of different kind of ideas of what even constitutes kavush.
And the Beit Yosef ends up really electing 8
He does, he does.
even though he considers the 3 day thing as like for some of the aspects,
Yeah, and
some of the
he
discussion
actually
in the Mordechai.
he's contradictory about Chometz also. uh,
Why?
Here, let's see, where was it? It was a Shah.
Aval be'emet shar oh, I'm looking.
Mitzir
Sure.
Obetoch. Yeah.
Are you back in the Beit Yosef?
Look at Bet in the Taz.
Oh, great. Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah, I'll just read it. He says, "Vim hu kavush." Not. This is part of Seif Aleph. He says, let me start out. Let me read the beginning of Seif Aleph, and
Yeah, Aleph.
then we'll go to the Taz there, right? Isur shenishre im heter me'eit la'eit, right? So he's ruling particularly in the 24-hour category here. Bitsonen mikre kavush ve'arehu kivushal b'ne'esar kulo aval pachot mikan b'hadachasaki. So if you have an isur that resides inside a heter for 24 hours, this actually the Pri Megadim says particularly it has to be a solid into a liquid essentially. But uh, the reason being is that a liquid to a liquid automatically just mixes with each other, and solid don't have kavush. So it's got to be a liquid, solid into a liquid, but it goes in there for 24 hours. It's a cold substance. That's called kavush, and it is like mavushal after 24 hours, and everything is asur. It's like a full transfer of flavor, but less than that, all you need to do is rinse it off. That's it. End of story.
Is Maliach sort of like not lach?
Maliach is not wait, like in terms of like what you
I'm saying,
salt.
isn't Maliach sort of like kavush without liquid?
Good. So yeah, the Maliach is like roteach, we say in the Gemara, right? Maliach keroteach, which maybe only
Okay.
goes as deep as, skin deep, shall we say? But an interesting question, and this is an axis of when we get to the seer thing. I think we'll get this in the Taz. Is the reason that seer is faster because it's a combination of kavush and Maliach together, and it's the
Mm.
saltiness that's actually the important factor there, and therefore other sharp liquids are not that case. Or is it not? It's just about the sharpness of the liquid. Yeah. But maliach is its own kind of cooking or roasting. And in fact, right, the rule for malicha for to get blood out is it is supposed to be on there kadesh yartiach, if I'm not mistaken. The amount of time that it
What
would
we're doing right, that's what we're doing right now with the fish.
Oh yeah. So of course.
It's like a 30 minutes in the fridge kind of thing. And that's what people do to remove moisture from
Mhm.
meats. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and of course, right, with fish is a nice thing because there's no stakes. You can drink all the fish blood you want, and you haven't been over. There's a
Right. But in
Mari
terms of
pain.
the what we understand it to do physically.
Yeah, but
Uh,
yeah.
but what the case here of it being a kosher problem when we say maliach, are we talking about non-kosher salt?
Oh no. Yeah, it could be.
Salt that was that touched unkosher meat, now touching kosher meat? Like what's even the case of the
Oh yeah, yeah,
heter and the
exactly.
isur?
Yeah, yeah. We're gonna get there. We're gonna get into like a
And we're
salt.
not doing that now.
Something that's like, yeah. And we're not talking about salt like I salted my food to make it taste good. We're talking about salting it to kosher it, that kind of the amount of salt where it's inedible with that amount of salt on it until you rinse it off. Um,
Okay.
yeah.
But what's the flavor transfer? That's what I'm trying to
Oh,
understand.
yeah. It could be two
What's
pieces.
the isur?
Imagine two pieces of meat, one's kosher, one's not, and
Hmm.
at least one, if not both, has is being salted, and the two of them touch each other.
Okay.
Yeah.
What if I took the salt that was previously used on a non-kosher piece of meat on a kosher piece of meat? It's essentially the same thing.
Yeah, that could be also. And the other thing,
Reuse.
if you salt meat in a clee that doesn't have holes in it, so the blood doesn't drain out, that could also be a problem. The same way.
Right. I think we saw that. Yeah.
Um, okay.
Okay.
הגה, וכל מקום דאמרינן כבוש כבושל, אפילו מה שחוץ לכבישה אסור. דעל ידי הכבישה שלמטה מפלפל למעלה כמו בבישול, ויש מקלים במה שבחוץ. So the Rama goes both ways. He says, when we say kavush kavushal, that includes if like the half of the piece that's above the liquid. Some people say that it goes the flavor transfer goes up, and others are lenient and say no, it doesn't include what's out of the liquid. He brings both opinions. The safek kavush asur. Safek kavush is forbidden. What's the reason?
Safek deoraita l'chumra.
Exactly. That seems to be. So it seems to be kavush is a direct rule. Milvad b'basar im chalav. Right. What's the exception? Basar im chalav dezlinan lekula. There were lenient to mina Torah ino asur rak b'bishul mamash. And because from the Torah law, a if you have a burger and you slap a piece of cheese on it, deoraita, though it's already been cooked. It's not cooking now, right? Uh,
Cold.
it's cold. That is an isur derabbanan. It's not an isur deoraita. It has to be cooked together. So.
So that's sort of that boundary case I remember we talked about if meat sits in milk for a day for kibush style time,
Mhm.
couldn't there still be, didn't we agree there could be plita, even if it's not bishul?
Yeah.
And you're saying that plita is really only Sir Durabanan?
Hmm.
Oh, because Basar and Chalav is very clear in the Torah, it's al bashel.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
it's truly not flavored. That's
Yeah.
asur in a weird way.
Yes. Exactly. That's
It's cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
Derabbanan. Derabbanan is a problem, but it's
Right.
not. Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's not, it's deoraita. That's not the point. So.
Right. And I'm saying the actual heart of the Isur, because it has that language of Bishul. Now, I mean, we could have understood that differently, that al bashel just means, because of flavor transfer. We
Yes.
don't like those flavors mixing. But what we're saying it almost a little Karaitically.
Yes. Yeah.
At least how we define the Torah Isser is
Yeah.
Karaitically. Yeah.
Ironic because I don't know how the Karaites read L'Tavash al Gedi B'Chalevim. I have no clue. So it's
Well, I imagine you would limit it if you were being really literal, you would limit it to that, to the
yeah.
Gedi and Chalevi Mo.
But,
The
uh,
actual, yeah.
yeah, the actual mother, and it's like otovet bano lo tishchu b'yom echad kind of thing. Then,
Yeah.
which that we do take right. That we say otovet bano is you cannot kill one animal and its child's offspring in the same day. Um, but we don't say we can't just kill two animals in one day, or we don't take that
Mhm.
more expansive. All right. Ve'imu kavush betoch sir o betoch chometz. So what if it's in sir or chometz? Im shaha kadeshi nenu ala or v'artiach. If you just leave it the amount of time it would take to start boiling when you put it on the, or start roasting maybe when you put it on the fire. V'yatchil bashel and begin to, sorry, boiling, and begin to cook. Hareu kimvushal. Then it's like kimvushal. Uvachot mishur zeh lo nesar ele kedei klipa. Less than that, it gets a kedei klipa. And okay, we're not going to look at the Rama there. So let's look at the Taz here. Imu kavush,
What does it mean, V'artiach here?
it start to boil. The amount of time it would take to boil it up.
The time.
Yeah.
Oh, Im Shah Kedei, Kedei meaning the time. Sheitnu Ala Ur, V'artiach, V'etchil Pasha. Okay, I get it. Yeah. Haru Kemuvusha.
So that might make a difference, if you're in Colorado or you're in, Michigan. But
What would?
well, the amount of
The
time it would take
time?
to time it would take to
Because
boil.
of altitude?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think it would halachically. I'm just saying, whatever that
An
time.
engineering thing here, yeah.
Yeah.
Or a physics thing.
Yeah. So um,
Okay.
let's do the Taz. This is a fun Taz. Go ahead.
Taz. Bet.
Yeah, I'm sorry. No, I said Taz. I meant Shach. Shach bet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
שח ב' ואם הוא כבוש בתוך ציר חומץ כולי, הרי הוא כמבושל. דעת המחבר כהראש לחלק בין ציר ושאר דברים. דבציר לא בעינן שישהה מעת לעת.
Uh-huh.
הוא got lucky. דמחמת רתיחת המלח, די כשישהה כדי שייתנו על האור ויתחיל להרתיח. והשווה דין חומץ לציר. Okay, so he like the Rush is different level with Sir and Chometz, and they treat Chometz and Sir the same. The Mechaber does. Okay, it's
Yeah,
interesting too because in the Beit Yosef's discussions, I don't remember this exactly how it played out, but it's when you understand the opinion, when you think about the opinion of Rashi, and I think there were a few other more Makil where it was just talking about Chometz and Sir. In a weird way, we've lifted some of that logic now. And we have what is kavusha is two things that are two different things. The steeping, as you called it earlier, which is eight le'eight, and chometz and sir, which would be more like pickling, which we would expect to be quicker and more powerful, and that's why it's kadesh ertiah.
yeah,
It works
but
better for me from like a logical perspective because I don't. I think if you treat it all the same, it's a little like these are different things, really.
exactly. They're different liquids with different strengths of
Yeah. And these liquids are designed to give flavor. That's your goal. Yeah,
yeah,
I don't know. I'm curious if you could pickle something in what did you say it was like 18 minutes?
could be. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you would transfer some flavor. I mean, yeah.
That's it
What
is
about
also
salty water? Would they, or is that what sear essentially is?
that's
Brine is just
salty
salt and
water.
water, no vinegar?
I don't think it does. I think it's just salt and water here, but I'm not sure. The way he plays it out sounds like it is. I also was like, I want to call it the language of demachmat retichat hamelach, right? It's the
Yeah.
salt in it, the boilingness of the salt, the heat of the salt that causes it to be faster. And I think that's an important point here.
And it works well with the Gemara's language of saying that melach in general is like, what was the
Like,
word? Sliya?
what was that?
What was the language?
Like,
Sli or
Katsliya.
Sliya? It has it has heat.
Hmm.
ואז הוא לטעמי, should I keep going?
Yeah.
ואז הוא לטעמי שכתב בית יוסף וזה לשונו. We're going according to the reason like he wrote in the בית יוסף. כבוש בציר כתב הראש בסוף פרק כ"ו. Hey, the shiuro,
Yeah, parakol basar.
kol הבשר, דשיעורו כאילו נתנו על האור, כדי שירתיח ויתחיל להתבשל. Um,
Keep going.
אוקיי, ואם נכבש בתוך הציר כשיעור זה, נאסר כל מה שבתוך הציר. Everything that was in actually in the tzir, ופחות משיעור זה, לא נאסר אלא כדי קליפה. So if it's less than that time, it already is given a little bit, the כדי קליפה amount of flavor. כדין מליח, הרי הוא כרותח. עד כאן.
Yep.
Okay, so it's even more strict really on some level, less than hartacha. Almost like really, well, is this like hot water? Putting it in Kli Rishon hot water?
Yeah. So
Basically the same. It would be Kedei Klipa immediately.
yeah, I think so. Yeah. That's and I mean we actually don't even put a time on, on how long it would take to cook usually with these things. We say it pretty much happens immediately. We did have right the Gemara, which talks about maybe it has to come down from boiling first before the flavor transfer happens. But um,
Uh-huh. Right, I remember that. Okay. ומשם ללמוד שכבוש בחומץ שעד שישהה כשיעור הזה אינו אסור אלא כדי קליפה. עד כאן לשונו.
mhm.
Okay, so we had we had the Shach quoting the Beit Yosef quoting the Rosh.
Yeah.
ותימה, דהרי הראש עצמו כתב בפירוש בפרק בתר דבורת כוכבים, דאף בחומץ באינן יום שלם. The Rosh himself says it takes a whole day in חומץ. ומביאו בית יוסף בריש סעיף זה.
Yeah. All right, Siman's there. I don't remember if it's C for Siman, but yeah.
בריש סימן זה. He brings it up in earlier there. אלא ודאי לאו דווקא חומץ לציר.
Oh, I think La Dami Chometz
לא
is.
דמי. אלא ודאי לא דמי חומץ לציר. Right. So certainly chometz and sir shouldn't be treated the same.
Mhm.
The tzir shanu she'anu osrim b'shvil koach hamelach sheyesh bo, because tzir has to do with the power of the salt. Dai b'shiur kedei sheitnu ala esh v'yartiach mishum demaliach hu hadin keroteach.
Mhm.
Roteach. Was that from the
I think it's
Gemara when we say
Haregu. I think
roteach?
Malia Harihu Kirotech. So
Hare hu keroteach. But we were trying to quote that before and we said
I said sleep. It was a mistake
sleep.
on my part. Yeah, it was my
So
bad.
that's what sort of what I wanted because that's of course you would have they're responding to that language as like that means salt power is like boiling power.
Exactly.
Um, okay, you would make a clear connection. Kimuvuar barosh. So is he trying to answer his tema with this by
No, he's
splitting seer and chometz?
his problem here is that sear and sear has salt, and that's why sear is fast. Chometz, the Rosh seems to think, and not the Beit Yosef at the moment, seem to think chometz is not in that category. It's a 24-hour category for chometz.
Right. The Rosh calls out chometz specifically. Okay. Kimuvuar barosh. Masha'en kain b'chometz. I see. I need to read that. Unlike chometz, which would be 24 hours.
Mhm.
So really his issue is that the Mechaber treats chometz and seer the same.
Yeah.
גם המחבר גופי כתב בריש סימן קד, לפיכך אם נפל לשיכר או לחומץ בצונן והסירו שלם, אם לא שהה בתוכו מעת לעת, מותר. Okay, so he himself, when we had the case of falling in, I guess the mouse,
Yep.
the beer, but the beer includes chometz. וצריך עיון. שוב ראיתי בספר שארית יהודה הביא תשובת בית יוסף שהתנצל דבריו שבבית יוסף, דמודה דבחומץ צריך מעת לעת. ודבריו שבשולחן ערוך כאן דוחק ליישב כן, ועיין שם. Okay, that's an interesting answer. So later on he regretted the way he wrote it in the Shulchan Aruch.
Yeah.
Explicitly wrote that in the Beit Yosef somewhere.
Yeah, the Beit Yosef seems to say the opposite of this is why when I read the Shulchan Aruch, I was like, we were in the middle of this Beit Yosef in class. I was like shocked. I was like, he seems to be saying that chometz is not immediate or not quick. It's 24 hours. And here he's saying in the Shulchan Aruch that it's not. It's like seer.
But he's saying it l'chumrah,
Fair.
so
I
it's not so crazy.
That's true. I don't know if the Taz would accept that. That doesn't make sense to the Taz. I don't.
Right.
He lives in a world where it's like you should just make a chumrah for the sake of a chumrah. It's the Taz himself.
I would say it might be a chumrah for the sake of simplicity of remembering, because if you're making a rule about seer, it might in the world that is normal. I mean, I think about the pickling world, it's very normal to consider brine and vinegar when you're making pickles is like the same category.
Yeah.
So im kach, that's one category. He's got to do it l'chumrah. Um, yeah.
All right.
Okay. Not to apologize for the. I like that he used the word mitnatzel here because I was just listening to an interesting Dvar Torah about this in the in our parsha about vinitzlu
Bayinat Sulat Mitzrayim. Yeah.
vayinatlu mitzrayim, and how weird that is because we're used to lehit natzel, linatzel rather, not lehit natzel. Linatzel means to in modern Hebrew to take advantage of,
Yeah. Yeah.
but that the hitpael lehit natzel
Mhm.
is sort of like apologize or
Yeah.
regret. Super interesting shorish. Lazio, Lenatzel, Lihitnotzel. Okay, but here it's like mitcharet, sort of.
I think so. Yeah. Unless
Uh,
the other way is,
hmm,
but maybe a bit of separation. It could actually. I wasn't sure. It could also be that he strengthens his words that are in the Beit Yosef.
hmm.
That because in the Beit Yosef, I think he does say the opposite. I don't know. I'm not quite sure how to read that. It's what does Jastrow think for not Sal, not the Jastrows. I have
Well,
like
the problem is you have to get the binyan right because it's a very different word.
it is. I have zero trust for Jastrow, but that's another day. Um,
Also, you can use Jasher for something like in the so late in the Sherit Yehuda.
yeah, I think you can. Hebrew doesn't really change that much until you get to the 19th century. Um, but does he even have heat not cell? He doesn't. He doesn't even have that. It doesn't have it in the heat file. So it's a good
It's a
question.
very interesting short. And in the Parsha, thinking about does it mean to take advantage, or does it mean basically what was being argued was that it's more like reparations to
Yeah,
repair.
I think it's to clear. Like Rashi says, to clear out something like that.
Yeah, so they brought a few different generations of Mefarshim who look at it differently and
What?
connected. I think it was the Malbim who connected it to the not so.
Let's see. ויהי בחצי בקרב במתשל ארון לילה, וגם צלם הרחמק ותחזק משם על עמלה מהלך שלחה מן הארץ, ותרם יחמס, ובני ישראל עשו כדבר משה, וישלו מצרים כחזר הזהב, והשם נתן את חן העם, וינצלו את מצרים, and what's Rashi? So you got me on.
This is after you shoel, which is another confusing thing there.
Yeah,
You're supposed to
Verokinu,
ask them.
and he gets this from Onkelos. They emptied it
Yeah,
out,
empty it out, no glyphs. Yeah.
and yeah, that's what Onkelos says. Verokinu yat Mitzrayim. They emptied out Egypt. So.
Yeah.
Uh,
But that also sounds a little bit like nitzul, like take advantage.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, not milulit, but I think it's a sort of explanation of the idea there.
yeah. What
Uh,
is? I'm just now. I'm curious. You
but
have
the
me.
reparations idea is coming from a perspective of I think it was the Malbim who says it's fair because we're leaving our homes, like we're leaving our land. So in sort of like a forced transaction, there's a fairness to taking, movable property.
Yeah.
Um, this is how it was like when I was in yeshiva. Like if you learn with me, I could easily get you off topic with some
Fair
other
enough.
Torah.
All of Torah is important. You need to
It
know
brings back
all.
memories. Well, it's a super interesting shorish that does mean something here. He's interpreting it that Beit Yosef is looking back and changing.
Yeah, I don't know. Either that or he's strengthening his. I'm not sure.
Hmm.
I don't know for sure. So I read it differently, but I'm going to your point. So I don't have a good answer.
התנצל דבריו שבבית יוסף. תמודד בכל מצרך מעת לעת. אוקיי. כאן תוך רק תיישב כאן. אוקיי, fine. וגם הבח פסק, דבחומץ הביא כבוש מיד כמו בציר. But in the Bach, chometz would be immediate, just like tzir,
Hmm.
which is more machmir than the mechaber.
Uh, well, I think biyad may mean kadesh yarkir.
Oh, Kaddish Eretz, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
The Katav Sharash model is it, and he thought that the Rush agreed to that. V'letek, it's Pirashti, but that's wrong. We can see in the Rush that that's wrong.
Exactly.
Gam but
Yeah, terataz, I
oh,
think.
but Ateretaz?
Yeah.
Okay, Katav, which is the Taz.
I don't believe it. I've never been
Oh,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
כתב כלשון המחבר כאן, ובסימן קד, ולא חלי ולא מרגיש. Um, ולא חלי? Yeah.
Hmm.
What does he mean? But that
I,
can't be
I
right.
I think he kind of misses it, or he doesn't.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. גם בדרישה הסיד דעת הראש לדעת, לדעת אחרת שאינה נכונה, מפני שרצה ליישב מה
מה שכתבו הגות ממוניות.
שהגאות מימוניות, פרק ט"ו,
Yeah, in machalot asur.
אסורות.
Yeah.
בשם הראש, וזה לא מצאתי בהגות מימוניות החדשים שלפניי. Here's the interesting thing about, does he have a book or a manuscript
Yeah. The Taz
sitting
has
in front of
probably
him?
got a book.
He would have a book, yeah.
I think so, yeah.
When is the Taz? No, this is the Shach.
The Shach, so, but both of them, the Shach and the Taz they're post Shulchan Aruch, right? So they're 16th, 17th century.
17th century.
Yeah. So they already have. I mean, there are still manuscripts floating around, but mainly
Hmm.
people are using printed books. I think by that point in time. By the way,
But in
the
the one that
Shulchan.
he has,
I don't know about the. I assume the Rambam with the Hagot Maimonides went to print pretty early on in the printing. Actually, I know it did, and that's probably what people are using. The Shulchan Aruch is printed in the lifetime of Yosef Karo. Uh, so
which
these,
makes sense.
yeah, a lot of people
Uh,
credit the success of the Shulchan Aruch to printing, to the ability that it was able to be printed and printed quickly.
in the context of the bigger picture, it's also a little bit later. It's not early printing in the sense of like it was so expensive and so, I mean, it's still probably very expensive, but it was like yeshivas might buy it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Dechi amrinan kavush kimvushal. So sorry. So the point there was that Hagat Maimoniot
We're gonna
did
see.
want to make it work in the rush. Oh, according to in the Drisha, but he doesn't
Yeah.
see it in Maimoniot. Dechi amrinan kavush kimvushal. Hanimini b'chometz v'tzir. Uh-huh.
Can it be Resh
Pirush
Rashi?
Rashi Adkan.
Adkan.
Right. So that's another important point is that this whole concept, like I mentioned earlier, is that in Rashi, right, he connects Kvisha to Chometz and Sir
Hmm.
right away. ואין זה צריך יישוב, שבלתי ספק שהגאות מימוניות לא כיוונו לראש זה, רק כיוונו לראש אחר. כגון הראש, so it wasn't talking about this rush, it's talking about a different rush.
Exactly.
Different iterate, a different person or a different halacha.
Keep reading. Different person.
Oh, הראש מפליזה,
Hmm.
או הראש מלוניל. שדרך הגאות מימוניות ומרדכי להביאם. Those are the ones that you would be often quoted by הגאות מימוניות and the מרדכי. אלא נראה כדעת הראש והטור ובית יוסף, תחומת שווה בזה לשאר משכין. That chometz would be similar to other liquids, which means 8 ל-8.
Exactly.
וכן משמע דעת המרדכי, ריש פרק ב' בבית
So, it's in Beitza, right? Resh Pekbet to Beitza, yeah.
וכן פירש מהרש"ל,
Isser v'heter shalo.
עבר הסר שלו, ובספרו,
Yeah, his
פרק,
sefer is oh my gosh. I can't believe I'm blanking all of a sudden. What's his sefer of halacha that's based on the Gemara? I'll think of it
מהרש"ל,
with the marshals, yeah. But um I'll think of it. But yeah, and he also wrote a book called. Many people wrote a book called Esther. Esther et Heter. He wrote one as well. So um,
בפרק ידענה שסימן מ"ט ובפרק כ"ה
a Parakol
אה,
Basar.
כל הבשר שם סימן צדי א' וכן וכך פירש האיסור וההתר הערוך כלל הערוך כלל ל' דין ח' דבחומץ לא הביא כבוש אלא מעת לעת עיין שם
Mhm.
וכן כתב בספר a bunch of other books.
Yeah. So. And I think that, and that's it. He goes into another topic from there. So I think that, at the end of the day, it seems to me that the Shach rules against the Shulchan Aruch here. He,
Mhm.
he thinks that Chometz,
Well, with the Beit Yosef against the Shulchan
he
Aruch.
does. He's got the Beit Yosef. Yeah, he's got backing him. He's got the Marshal. It's so that's a pretty good group there.
Yeah, I'm weirdly he doesn't go the direction that I'm going, which is why would he have listed it here more Machmir?
Hmm.
I just think there's assumptions here about what Seer and Chometz are. So if you were making a halacha book, you might be a bit more careful on Chometz. Also, why would Chometz be like Shar Mashkin?
Also true. Yeah, he used to be somewhere in between the two of them, you think? Something like that.
That would make sense. Yeah.
Yeah, or you could look at it as the truth is that Shar Mashkim is a chumrah to make him like
Yeah,
chumetz because Rashi seems to think Shar Mashkim maybe does nothing.
right.
Other than right the proof against that, the whole idea that the proof by exception of Basar B'chalav is of course chalav is not harif at all, and we say Basar B'chalav doesn't happen in 24 hours, implying everything else does happen in 24 hours, including with milk. And so that would imply non-Harif things, maybe actually Mashkim actually.
No, I mean, I'm going to quote you now when I said that to you.
What did I say?
Well, because it's a chidush, so it's not because of the way that milk operate. I mean, unless that's part of the chidush. No, I mean, the point is there is natinat ta'am in milk like shar mashkim, but basa v'chalav is bishul only, and that's going to limit it, not because pleita is different than chalav.
No, I understand that. Yeah,
Isn't
yeah.
that what we mean by chidush? That it's unique.
No,
It's
no, yeah, no, no. I agree with that. It's if you follow the idea that Shar Mashkim don't have kavush, then milk should never have had kavush in the first place. It wouldn't be a chiddush. It was like nothing steeped in milk would have a problem. And you were saying basar
right.
chalav steeped in milk doesn't have a problem. Well, of course, that's you don't have to write that. That's pshita. So it does.
Because yeah, but it's not saying anything about steeping in general, bland
No.
steeping.
Yeah.
On the other hand, yes, I could see the argument that halav is the chidush is halav is so non-acidic, right? I mean, isn't that right? Halav is what do you call it? Basic,
Basic. Yeah.
which is sort of the opposite of acidic,
It is. It is the opposite of acidic, right? It's
right? Which means it's not much of something that breaks things down. I mean, the big question is water, you know?
yes.
You would think of water as pretty neutral.
It theoretically it is, but water also does break things down because of the polarized molecules in there. So
Hmm. And most water has something else in it.
also true. Most
They
water
don't
is
have
not
bacteria in there doing their work.
not just bacteria, right? Well, water tends to have salt ions in it.
Mm, cool. It's really like, but I think it's a good thing that none of the halachas. This is sort of what I'm afraid about in the future of halacha, because when you have access to science, and I don't think most observant people are going to use science lakula. So you're really opening up a world of chumrah when you think about it.
I mean, that
I
has
got broad again, but you see my point.
yeah.
Like now we can look into the molecules. Does that we can limit halacha and say it's never going to care about
Yeah.
chemistry.
So hey, I'm going to go off on this for a minute here. So first, I
Yeah,
mean, we do see
this
a
is your
little bit
topic.
with bug checking, light boxes and microscopes and not microscope, magnifying glasses at least. And I think the pushback on that has always been right from the Gemara, lo nitna Torah lemalchei hasharet. It wasn't given to the angels, and therefore it should be just what is sensible with you know, the tools of the human body, and nothing beyond that. If you can't tell beyond the human body, which they were already aware of, ways to tell things beyond, they had technology of some sort. Like there's another, I talking about shirim and source sheets. I haven't given this shir in years. On what do we do in halachic context when we know the science is wrong, like of Chazal. And it's not like I'm not saying something, I don't think I'm saying something heretical here, right? There's different approaches to this. Some people, really, there's four that I can tell, maybe five that I can tell, which one is very simply, Chazal was right, the science is wrong, right? That's one approach. Like one thing, the louse, killing a louse on Shabbat is a great thing. Right? So Chazal says you can kill a louse because a louse doesn't have, it spontaneously generates from sweat. It doesn't, it's not a real animal that's born of an egg. Um, Another approach is,
There's a version of that that's not quite so crazy, which I think you basically already said, which is that in the human experience, a louse doesn't feel like that same level of creature. Like I'm updating what they actually literally said. They brought a scientific proof from their time, but it's also a non-technological, right? We still have non-technological living, at least in the
yeah.
meantime.
So, yeah, there's
Sometimes.
there's two versions of that. One is the version of Chazal, their science was wrong, but their law was right. They knew the law, and then they applied the scientific principles of their day to explain the law. But it's not that
Yeah,
the law led to the science led to the law. It's that
right.
they use science to back it. So their science was wrong. The other version is, which is actually really fascinating. This is the Dor Revi'i kind of goes on this. He says, yeah, their science was wrong, but like you can't change the law with every update of science, and so we don't do that. And there is a version that says, actually, yeah, we do. Like we Lampranti in the Pachad Yitzchak, not the Pachad Yitzchak of Huttner. This was an Italian guy who essentially tried to write an encyclopedia of halacha. And he has all these interesting arguments with his teacher. And he says I argued as Yehuda Mibril, I think is his name of his teacher. And he says I argued with him about this. And he said, well, then, the law would always be changing and who could keep up with it and all that. And I said, you don't understand. And he said, the science might be proved to be wrong. He said, you don't understand. This is mathematics. And it's with, you see the work of Copernicus. He like, quote, he just, this is real. This is, so you have all the approaches. There's the fifth approach, kind of, which is the Tosfot take in some places where they say that, Nishnat Teva, that the nature changed kind of thing, which is saying that we also update the law, but that we update it because it's a different world, so to speak. But
Certainly feels like that would be an argument one could make in our time where technology is starting to disrupt life on such a level.
mhm.
I mean, there's probably a lot of times it felt like that big of a deal
Yeah,
in history, but I don't know. There's some things that really would feel like, I mean, if you were living in space, that's nishtana teva, right? I mean, you literally are not in the same day and night cycle, and obviously there's a lot of halachic development that will have to happen there one day.
yeah, like,
Um,
exactly. I mean, the whole calendar, the whole daily, Orach Chaim, right? All Orach Chaim is based on the
yeah.
earth. It's based on living on
Yeah.
earth, putting on tefillin in the morning. When you get up, saying certain brachot, saying davening at certain times of day, and it all goes out the window. Even though we've made it work for the entire earth to some extent, even places where sunrise and sunset don't happen normally, the way it's normal for the most of the earth. We figured out how to make it work for Earth, but we did. We figured out how to make it work for the Arctic Circle also, and we'll figure it out for space. So,
That was the topic of this year, right? No, we got far. Yeah, no, I do think though the argument that you in the middle there about we do change with technology, you certainly see it on the page here, not necessarily intentionally, but they have to respond to technological changes
mhm.
constantly. It's not new. That part's not new. I mean, I remember when we were doing Shabbos, the different ovens were clearly just different technologies of different times and had to be updated.
Yeah.
I don't
So,
know.
yeah. I mean, look. Also, if you ask, I think if you ask anybody who's Shomer Shabbos today, what is it you can't do on Shabbat? Someone who doesn't like hasn't learned a lot. They would say electricity. In fact, my kids used to do like I don't know if my younger one ever went to this phase. Maybe I think he did too. I would say to they essentially thought Shabbat was two things. You can't use electricity and you can't touch a category of stuff called muksa. Right? And sometimes I remember asking my daughter saying, you can't turn on a light because the light is muksa. You know,
Yeah, that's completely normal. Yeah.
yeah, but it really is. I mean, we have remapped all of Shabbos because we don't do most of the things that are asur on like
We
most of
don't ever do it. Yeah.
yeah, most of us are not farmers. Most of us don't. We don't make our own clothes. Most of like yeah, as some people do. Some people have but it's almost like a hobby for most people. It's not like what you do as a sense of work.
Yeah.
But what do most of us do? We turn on and off lights. We turn on computers. We
I was gonna say that the electricity thing that I think we grew up with is changing into the you don't use your phone.
Mhm.
Like the central uh technological experience. It's almost it's in that one or two things.
Yeah.
Hmm.
All right.
Okay. Well, that's one of my favorite topics that when we were doing Shabbat. I um I have a question for you for after we're officially done with our
Let's call it here.
learning.
We'll do more next time. So I'll stop the recording and then I'll
Shabbat
uh,
recording.
yeah.